Okay, so one of the next tasks is to get our radiator mocked up. Now, our radiator, of course, it's a half-size Civic radiator, and it's going to need a fan. So we're probably going to run this one. It's a SPAL. I think it's like a high performance, not an extreme performance. I have extreme performance, and they bolt right up, but this is very likely plenty. The extreme performance, these move almost the same CFM. On the extreme performance, the motors are even taller, and the blades are designed to where they can pull a really, really high pressure differential, which is good for like if you've got like stacks and stacks of heat exchangers, like, you know, say you've got like a radiator, an AC condenser, an oil cooler, an intercooler, like you just got so much stuff. That's where the extreme performance helps. Now in this case, we just got a single radiator and that's it. Not even running an intercooler. So I don't think we need that. So we'll run with this. Now here's the thing, and I'll show you. I'll bring you back. Okay. Fan. I like having fan shrouds, and I also don't like fans physically running up against the tubes because vibration and movement can chew into that. So I'm not a fan of that. I've seen people attach these by like shoving plastic zip tie things through there. Also not a fan of that. You're never going to see an OEM do either one of those things. Every OEM will have a fan with a shroud. So that's how we're going to do it. There's a couple problems. It's going to take forever to do this. I don't have a sheet metal brake or really any sheet metal tools. So we're just going to pay somebody to build our shroud. So this is fairly straightforward, and it'll probably be a while before you guys get to see the finished result. But we just grab a tape measure and took some measurements. So we had the radiator vertical, the way it would be in a car, like this. No fan, of course. So we looked at it and said, okay, draw the critical dimensions. And so we did. We picked up our bolt holes. We need a little notch around the water inlet and the water outlet. 4 tabs for the bolt holes, length, width. I don't know, that's kind of about it. Fairly straightforward. And then of course there's a hole that goes in the middle for the fan. We measured that, 12 and 3/16. So pretty straightforward. Next we will go to we use Fusion 360. We'll do the 3D modeling, whip up a shroud, create a whatever file, DXL or whatever the hell it is, and place that order. It'll probably be like $50 or something, or not too bad, and it'll be here and it'll just work. We're gonna do the big hole. We'll have that laser cut. I don't really feel like figuring out where all these are because they're not on a 90-degree spacing, I don't think. Maybe I'll check. But anyway, what I'll probably gonna do is I'll get this laser cut. It'll have a big hole in the center and all the other stuff you see in the drawing. And then when it gets here, I'll just set the fan on the piece of metal and take a Sharpie, you know, like line it up and grab a Sharpie, pop it in there, mark it, drill the last 4 holes by hand, because it's literally just faster. And I'm not like mass producing, selling this fan shroud, so it's just quicker. So we'll probably do that. Anyway, just thought I'd show you guys this. I'm still going to get the radiator. We're about to start mocking it up in the car, figuring out our brackets of how to attach this in the car. So we still got some work to do. We were planning on cutting off these inlets and outlets and putting them in more favorable locations. I even considered remaking the end tanks. But after thinking about it, I've decided not to do that. And I've got a reason for doing it, possibly a good reason. The reason is, if this radiator fails, this thing was cheap and readily available, and if I don't modify the radiator, that means if it ever fails, I can just buy another one and swap it out. Whereas if I go customizing this one, it's practically a guarantee that it's going to break, and then I'll have to buy another radiator and customize it. So let's not deal with that if we don't have to. And the truth is, we probably don't have to. We can probably just run this the way it is. So we're going to try to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention, could I make this shroud? You damn right I can. I don't actually have the material big enough to make this. I found this piece, but I could cut it up and weld it together and make it work, or I could buy some metal and wait on it to get here. And you can probably guess, but buying a piece of metal and getting it shipped here will cost more than getting this laser cut and having it shipped here. So could I build a shroud? Yes. But it's literally cheaper and faster to do this, model it up, and then just pay somebody to laser cut it and ship it to me. So that's what we're going to do. Anyway, thought I'd mention that. Some of you guys like to see how stuff's made, and there's a time and a place. Sometimes you build stuff yourself, and sometimes you design it and then pay somebody else to cut it out. So that's going to be our shroud and fan. we're gonna get the radiator mocked up, see where it's gonna go, and start figuring out how to get it bolted into the car. Alright guys, check it out. So we're mocking up our radiator, and we want to get it basically as low as we can. So I temporarily put the front bumper on, and we checked the height from the ground. So this bottom lip is about 4 inches roughly from the ground, which it's going to probably be a little lower when all the weight's in the car. But the reason I did that is I wanted to get the bottom of the radiator to be similar. So you can see these blocks of wood. I've got the radiator just sitting, yeah, you can kind of see it there. It's just sitting, resting on that wood. And it's just slightly higher than the bottom of that plastic lip. And you can see the bottom of the radiator, all of that, and then up here, you can see the very bottom of the fuel cell. There's the drain, so a hose is going to be coming off there. So you've got some decent, you know, this whole front opening is directly has like airflow exposed to the radiator. But the top section, if we come over here, I'll try to get the camera. Yeah, kind of hard to show. There's a gap. It's about 1 inch roughly between the radiator. Yeah, there we go. That shows it fairly well. So there is a gap, and it's not exactly where it goes, but this is roughly where it goes. So I've got it far enough off the fuel tank that it's still going to be able to pull air with a very minimal restriction. But I wanted to get the radiator as far forward as possible, and there's a few reasons to do that. Obviously, you're moving weight towards the front. Radiator is going to be full of water. Radiator has a big electric fan on it, so it's heavy. So keeping that forward helps the car from wheeling, and keeping it down low also helps the car from wheeling. And keeping it forward, see the gap between the engine and the radiator? Now granted, there's still a fan shroud and a fan, but the more forward I can push that radiator, the more room there is to work on the car. You know, like working on the engine, checking fuel fittings, or whatever the case. Like, you know, you can see now, I mean, I could stand in the engine bay no problem right now. There's a ton of room. So the more the merrier. It's nice having space. So anyway, that's cool. We got to go get some materials, so we're probably going to call it a day. But I'll show you what we're planning. So I've got some flat bar. I ran out of it. This is super thin. It's only a 1/16 of an inch thick aluminum, but it's 1.5 inches wide. It's going to be skimpy, but I think it's adequate because really a radiator weighs like, I don't know, 10 or 12 pounds or whatever. It's not that heavy. So I think we're just going to take, if you look here, see those little rivet nuts we put in? We're going to do the same thing. There's a section in this area. We're going to drill and install rivet nuts like here and here, and we're going to do the same thing over there. And then we're going to cut ourselves a strap that shoots straight down, and then it'll go across the bottom of the radiator, and it'll have holes drilled to where the radiator drops in. That'll secure the bottom of the radiator using the factory mounts. And we still got to do something about this, which will just be some kind of strap that catches it, although I'm not sure of the details of that yet. A couple reasons why. One, I've got this bolt, but it's being used for the bumper. This bolt gets used for the headlight. I think I'm out of bolt holes, so I got to do something with that. And another point of interest, if I run a strap in this area, I'd like to be able to access this fitting to disconnect it and plug it. This is my vent, so I don't really want to strap here. And you can see we got a whoopsie here. Our bumper is playing defense, so we're going to have to cut some of this to give access to fuel the car. But again, we can't put a strap there because if we do, well, it blocks access to the fuel fill. So we're starting to run out of places where that could be. We're probably going to have to build something maybe like this. But I kind of want to triangulate it maybe so that it's, you know, not terribly flimsy. But I also don't love having to tie that to the bumper cover. So yeah, we're not really sure on that one yet. If you guys have any great ideas, let me know. But anyway, I do like overall. I think this is going to look pretty good. And we're keeping, I'll try to get you a better view. But yeah, this is definitely leaving some space on the driver's side so we can potentially put the turbo down there in the future. And I like using off-the-shelf parts, and this radiator was like cheap and pretty decent performance for the money. So anyway, that's going to wrap this one up for today. Tomorrow we'll have the material in hand. I'm going to pick it up tonight, and we'll get to fabricating on that. So hope you guys are enjoying, and until next time, y'all take it easy.